Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Trey Olds Radio Show. Thank you for joining us today. Today, my special guest is actor Mr. Chris Kalman. Thank you, and join us in a minute. Okay, my first question to you is, how did you get started being an actor? How did your career begin?
Well, actually, it's kind of funny because I come from a long line of actors in my family. Actually, I have a sister who's younger than me, who actually has been doing this since she was probably about 4 years old, and she's in LA and is pretty successful now. My father, who you've had on before, Brian St. August, is doing very well. I was about the middle one, and I actually started as a theater actor. I went back to college and wanted to find something to do that I found to be kind of my own. And I had always wanted to just try acting. I hadn't done it before. So I was 25 and I went back to school and I took an acting class and I was hooked. I had an incredible teacher who got me into theater, and I did about 5 years of straight theater there for a while. And I got out of it. My father started doing a lot of started with extra work, and then he got into some smaller gigs and then some bigger gigs, and now he's doing really well and pretty much kind of got me a lot of the connections that I have, if that helps.
Are you still acting? Are you still doing acting projects and stuff?
Well, I act every day pretty much just because of the job that I have, and so does my father. We're standardized patients with Johns Hopkins, and basically that just means that we act as patients, sometimes doctors, sometimes nurses, to help nursing school and med students to be able to communicate with patients better rather than being extremely analytical. So we kind of do that all day long. So it keeps us sharp, even though right now there's obviously nothing going on acting-wise. I was just on the phone trying to put together a project that was just sent to me, and it's going to hopefully start in the end of June, early July, for an Alexandria Film Festival gig. I'm not sure exactly beyond that. I just got the call, so I'm just telling you first.
Yeah, a lot of acting gigs have slowed down because of all this, but hopefully it will end soon,
Well, it's hard to say. I think that for the most part, I'm not a cup of half empty kind of guy, but I really don't think it's going to get much better for quite some time. So unfortunately, it's just everybody's affected, including actors, obviously. And this is kind of like the slow time. Typically right about maybe a month from now is when things would start to pick up. That's when I did Day of the Gun with my father. And I did a lot of other shows myself. Around this time would have been when it was starting up, and you go through the summer and into the fall. But everything is just up in the air right now. It's a lot of projects that are on hold, and but also still those that are looking for money, looking to fund, and that's obviously not going to happen either. So yeah, it's just really depressing, kind of.
Yeah, only time will tell, and all we can do is pray and see.
You are exactly right, my friend.
My next question to you is, what do you find is the most challenging part or the most difficult part for you being an actor?
Well, it really depends on, it's kind of like, it's such a vast thing. I would say the most important and most difficult thing is subtlety, and that's something I've always worked on pretty much since I started acting. You see a lot of overacting a lot of times, especially from actors that came from the stage, like myself, where we were always acting on stage. You're telegraphing to a full audience that can't really see you very well usually. Everything's got to be bolstered and bigger than life. So when you take a stage actor like that, like myself, and put them into a TV and movie situation, it brings everything in. So you have the least little expression or movement will show up. So it's like putting a magnifying glass on you, and I've found that to be the most challenging, but also the thing that I feel like I've gotten the most. I guess I've gotten the best out of. I guess at this point. Yeah,
it's a different kind of acting when you come from the theater, but when you go
opposite.
Absolutely, but you can apply that knowledge when you go into film and television, and vice versa.
You certainly can, and I've always been, my main profession growing up was I was a martial arts instructor, and we used to have a saying with that, if you were held, say, a black belt in a certain style, say Taekwondo, which is where I came from, and you wanted to take another style, it's easier to learn a style when you don't have something that you're already doing really well, because that creates mistakes from your past thinking. And it's kind of like the same thing with acting, and it's so opposite that it's very easy to just kind of slip into those little issues where those habits come out. And like I said, the screen is so tight on you that everything is seen, everything's revealed. So you just have to be extremely careful when you're doing that to make sure that the performance is really is truthful more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be realistic, not over-realistic, but
Oh, yeah. We've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, you have to make it genuine, realistic, and get into the character. And
absolutely.
You're making a character. You can't do your own anything. You have to do the character.
Well, yeah, depending on the character. A lot of times, I know that I got the most work. I think at one time I had done more of these reenactment shows on Investigation Discovery than any other person. I got a role to play in the TV show. God, what was it called? It's the first one they did. Who the Bleep Did You Marry? Mm-hmm. That was a show that was pretty popular when this came on, and I did an audition downtown with at the time it was Discovery, and I got a gig, and they told me who I was going to play, and I went down to do it, and I was the lead, but I was playing the most prolific American rapist in history. So they'll tell you right then and there,
What a great role to play, huh?
I know. It really, but that was the first one I did, and I only played villains throughout the 5 years I did that back and forth. I was doing 2 shows at a time, and every time I was going to invest in an orange jumpsuit because I was always ending up wearing them in my costumes. So, but that was really my kind of like my taking off point into doing stuff that wasn't extra work and or smaller, sometimes college type films and things like that. So it was helpful.
Yeah, it's interesting. And that's good because they get a lot of great actors for the reenactment shows, that it seems just realistic, to me.
They do, and exactly. And honestly, for that time that they were so, for about 10 years, it was, because I know I did my first one in 2010. And I know for the first 5 years, like I said, I was 1 or 2 shows at a time, an entire space. And it was easier for me because I liked, the villains, they were pretty easy to play because you had a lot you could do with it. It was always harder to play a good guy or somebody who didn't have as much substance to them to make them exciting enough. But the villains, you just give me something, I'll run with it. And I found that to be really, really fun just to do that with. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the villains are more fun to play, I think, yeah.
They are. They definitely are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're nice all the time, you.
That's true. Yeah, it does. Well, it just seems to be that most of those characters, especially in those reenactment ones, because they're real.
Oh, yeah.
They're obviously real enough to be exciting enough to put on TV. So you've got quite a bit of already existing information about that character, and then going and taking it a step further with whatever was not shown, and then you put your small, within reason spin on it, and it makes for a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you also done voiceover work or narration, or just film?
I honestly, no. I had been thinking about it about 2 years ago, and my father does a lot of that as well. Mm-hmm. And I just, there wasn't a lot of call when I was looking for it. I've done it just for small projects that friends of mine were doing, things like that, but never like on a commercial basis. I don't do a lot of commercial work. I'm mainly film and TV, mm-hmm. and that's just by choice, really. So I'm not against it. I definitely, right now, especially for the money, it'd be great. But no, I haven't.
Yeah, I've done theater, voiceover work, radio. Never done film and television yet. One day, hopefully. But
yeah. Well, I would. It's funny because it's at least at a certain time. Probably true still. It's easier to get acting roles on TV and in smaller films than it is, I would imagine, to get the voiceover stuff, you get that really good solid voice, and you do. I heard your show before, and I heard specifically the one my father did with you. So
thank you.
It's obviously, well, no, I don't say anything I don't believe, and you do have a good strong voice for that. You know how to work it, and that's a very big talent. So, but I found that maybe it's just because we're looking in different directions of what we like to do, but there were a lot of there's always work around. It just depends on how whether or not it's worth it to you, or if it's something that's down your avenue. But unfortunately right now there's absolutely nothing. So, I was all ready to get going too, but just that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah. I'm grateful I'm still able to do some of my interviews, throughout all this.
Oh, yeah. Well, you and I both have dealt with a lot of health issues lately. And it's, I myself almost died about 2 weeks ago because I had an infection that had sepsis. So I spent about 2 weeks of the last month in the hospital, and I got out just a week ago, and I'm still recovering. I'd say probably about 75-80% right now, but it was touch and go there for a while, and I know you've been dealing with some tough stuff yourself, so you know what I mean. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're better.
Oh, thank you. You too. It wouldn't be if we weren't having this conversation. That's a good sign.
Yeah. My last question to you is, and I know we talked a little bit about it, but what is your advice to people who want to be an actor? What do you think?
Well, and actually I've helped a couple of people that I know get into this, and it really depends, first off, on what you want to do. I think that people tend to sum up, like you and I were just talking about how many different styles of acting there is depending on the job you're doing, the theater and the TV, but there's also what is it that you really want to do. You have to narrow it down enough first before you can even begin to answer that question. If you want to act in theater, there's ways to do that. You can do what I did, which was go back to college and take a course. You can, this TV, there are different sites where you can go on that usually you would have actors looking for jobs. Brian Dragonock's site is particularly good. I'm sure you know all about that one. Unfortunately, Brian left passed a while ago. He's a wonderful, wonderful friend. The guy I worked with a lot on different shows. But sites like his, they're really the best way to get some on-the-job training. And I remember when I was in college, my professor said, don't take a bunch of classes. Get out there and do it, because that's the only way you're going to learn. You stay in the classroom too long, you're going to wind up overanalyzing everything, and you're making it harder on yourself. So get out. If they're doing asking for extras, jump in, do it. Meet some people that way. That's always a good thing. It was better when we still had things like The Wire and House of Cards and some of those shows where even though you're doing extra work, you might not show up. You can meet some of the people involved, and camera people and directors, and it's a good way to get connections. You get yourself in the element when you can, and meet who you can. That can really help it's just to build the stepping stones to where you want to go. So my advice would be just look for any openings in an area that you want to pursue. They're always looking for extras in movies all the time. Do that. If you want to get into film, if you want to do TV, it's the same kind of thing. So once you get in with some of the people that are like my father in particular, he's very good with giving people advice on what to do and where to go. Mm-hmm. But it's easier than I think a lot of people think. I think that they tend to psych themselves out thinking everything's got to be like Hollywood, and it's not. You have to start somewhere, but getting into it's really not that difficult.
Yeah. I've always told people acting is people watching. Acting is reacting.
Exactly right. That's it. That's exactly right. It's learning, watching everything. Down to the smallest, like a wink or a twitch. It's noticing the subtleties that really help to create a character that is truly a real character. There can't be any openings, any point where you're not invested. Otherwise, it comes through. The screen, the lens is very, very telling. There's not much you can do to lie to it. So, like you said, it's just trying to focus in on your craft, no matter what that is, and being aware of the character itself, and then making sure that you're in that character at all times.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well,